Hi, I'm Darren Decker and this is Herb Brooks. We're back to continue our discussion of GC troubleshooting. We've covered ghost peaks, baseline noise,
Baseline disturbances, tailing peaks.
fronting peaks.
Now we're going to cover the changes in peak size. This could be an increase in peak size or a loss in peak size. A loss in peak size is also commonly referred to as loss of sensitivity. I'll start with some basic to think about. Look for patterns or trends. Are all the analytes affected or just some of them? If all the peaks change roughly the same amount, it's likely due to three possibilities: a sample introduction problem, a GC inlet problem, or even a detector problem. Check to make sure that the syringe is not clogged or leaking. Verify that the injection settings are what you expect. Check the split ratio if you're using split injection mode. Check the purge time and the purge flow if you're using splitless injections. And check for leaks at the column inlet and the detector. Make sure that all the detector settings are set correctly. For example, check the flows, voltages, and whatever parameters are specific to that detector being used. If only some peaks are affected, see if the affected peaks are from the same volatility or functional groups. If only peaks with certain functional groups are affected, perhaps you could have active sites. Inlet maintenance is probably a good idea. Replace the liner, trim the column, and even the gold seal as we talked about earlier. If the analytes that show the loss of response are high boilers or have low volatility, you could be getting some sample discrimination. The high boiling compounds aren't vaporizing as well as they used to. At this point, make sure your inlet temperature is set correctly. You may have to use a liner with glass wool or even a different liner with higher thermal mass, which will improve vaporization for the less volatile compounds. We found that glass wool at the bottom of the liner will improve volatilization of these compounds. If the sensitivity returns, this indicates that discrimination occurred in the inlet and the glass wool minimized it. If sensitivity is lost for more volatile compounds, this could be due to leaky valves or changes in sample preparation. Remember, you could also have a leaky syringe.
We get questions from customers all the time about what to do when they don't get reproducible results. We've overlaid two chromatograms here, and we can see that we are getting different peak sizes even though this analysis has been run on the same instrument with the same column and with the same injection parameters. So where do we start? Let's look at the vial seal. The integrity of the vial seal can become compromised, causing changes in your chromatography. This is particularly an issue if you're making multiple injections from the same vial. So changing that vial seal will solve the problem, if that's the problem.
If your vial seal is not the issue, I'd start with the easy inlet stuff first. Make sure that the septum is not damaged. If it is, replace it. Next, particularly if all your peaks are not being affected, you want to check gas flows and temperature settings. Also, check your detector background level. If you're getting a lot of noise, your issue may be related to system contamination, not the detector. Okay, those are basic instrument-related causes, but a lot of the reasons for changes in sensitivity have to do with the analytical process.
Yep. You'll want to look at your split ratio, injection volume, and other inlet settings to make sure nothing has changed from the original settings. Any changes could obviously change your response or peak size.
Your purge activation time is another possible cause. Check the split on-off time. This is only an issue when you're doing splitless injections.
Let me show you how to do that. We go to our software, click on injections, make sure we've got a splitless injection here, and now our purge flow is set to 60 mils a minute in this case, and it's going to do that at 30 seconds. As long as that's what our documentation says, we should be fine. Sample backflash is another common cause of reproducibility problems. Backflash is where the vapor volume of the injected sample exceeds that of the liner. We also call this injection overload. It can also result in ghost peaks or bonus peaks over time. But that's covered in another section. There are steps you can take to prevent backflash. You can reduce the injection volume, lower the injection temperature, try pressure pulsing the injection if you have that capability, or change the solvents and or use a larger volume liner. You can download our free vapor volume calculator to help you with this. Column activity is another common cause of changes in peak size or loss of sensitivity. If you have column activity and it's not just on the front end of the column and solved with trimming, well, it's likely irreversible and you'll need to change the entire column.
Sooner or later, if you haven't performed inlet maintenance, you'll have issues with your chromatography. So, changes in sensitivity or peak sizes can be caused by a lot of different things. Start looking for patterns. Are all peaks affected in the similar way? If so, it's probably a problem with your inlet, syringe, or your detector. Next, if only some of the inlets are affected, look to see what type of inlets are experiencing the issue. Are they high boilers or are they low boilers? Beyond that, here's some items to check when you see a change in sensitivity. Check the vial seal. Check the septum. Check the detector's response and gas flows. Check the split ratio settings. Also, check for split on-off time. And if you inject manually, make sure the volumes are consistent.
Also, verify the sample concentration you prepared. Look for a leak in the syringe. Check for column contamination and column activity. Consider sample backflash. Use our vapor volume calculator to see if you're not overloading the inlet. And of course, inlet maintenance is always important to reduce inlet activity.